Okay, students, so we're here and we're back and we're going to talk more about angles, because why not? And again, this is a lead up. We're going to talk about this more throughout the year, at least a couple more times, but this is an incredibly powerful picture, all right? Picture is more important than the Mona Lisa or any other famous pictures. Why? Because it helps us know and understand triangles and build buildings with good structure. All right, so what is the relationship between angles 1 and angle 4? So again, right here, this answer is alternate interior angles. And then what about angles 5 and 2? Again, alternate interior angles. If you're having trouble seeing why, you got these parallel lines, extend them. Transversal for that part, or you can even say we have this transversal over here. And then just quickly, I'm not going to talk about this too much, I don't want to ruin a future lesson, but what do angles 3, 4, and 5 add up to? 180. Well, 1's congruent to 2, 2's congruent to 3, so if those add up to 180, then the sum of any angles in a triangle have to add up to 180. That's a little foreshadowing to the proof of the triangle sum theorem. Alright, stay tuned for more. But anyways, moving right along. Is 1 congruent to 16? Explain at least 2 different ways you can prove this. Alright, so is angle 1? Again, it's always good to emphasize the angles we're talking about. Well, before we even start to answer the question, let's note that L and M are parallel. And let's note that S and T are parallel. So all those theorems and postulates we have is true. Alright, so let me zoom out a little bit. Let me pick a good color. I like this color. Forest orange. Alright, I know that 1 is congruent to angle 9 by the corresponding angles postulate. And because L is parallel to M, we know that works. And then I could also say, well, 9 is congruent to angle 16 because they're alternate exterior angles, and S is parallel to T. All right, so it says 2 different ways. That's way number A. Number B, let's do it a different way. Let me pick a good color. Let me pick electric pink. Number B, I could say, well, 1 is congruent to an angle 8 because those are alternate exterior angles, and we know S is parallel to T, so that works. And then I could say, well, 8 is congruent to 16 because the corresponding angles postulate, and L is parallel to M. So again, something I like about geometry, as we acquire more and more knowledge, we add more tools to our tool belt, and then there's plenty of ways to do a single problem. There's not just one way to do something. All right, there's multiple paths. Just as long as you use logic and reason, you'll be good. All right, so, and then remember, there's only 2 options. Angles are either congruent or they're supplementary. So in doing this problem right here, it says what angles are congruent to angle 10? Well, let's just highlight it, and then we'll discuss our findings. So we have 10 and 13 are congruent because they're vertical angles. 10 and 2 are congruent because they're corresponding angles. 10 and 5, alternate interior angles. Okay, 10 is congruent to 12, corresponding angles. 10 is congruent to 15, alternate interior angles. And then indirectly, well, 12 and 4 are congruent because they're corresponding angles, so 4 and 10 are congruent by transitive. And then 10 and 7, because you could say, well, 4 and 7 are vertical angles, and if 10 is congruent to 4, 10 must be congruent to 7. All right, so these are all the angles. Angle 2, angle 5, angle 13. Let's not even forget angle 10. Angle 10 is congruent to itself by reflexive property. Remember the reflexive property, that was in Unit 2. We're going to use reflexive property a lot in Unit 4. So that's a good reminder. Okay? Now, some more problems. Let's just cruise right along, knock out some things. How's things going? Ooh, a lot of action-packed stuff. Are 2 and 6 corresponding angles? I want you to write yes or no before I write yes or no. Are 2 and 6 corresponding angles? Here's 2, here's 6. Did you write yes or no? A lot of students like to miss this problem. You're not going to believe it. Are you guys ready? They are, in fact, corresponding angles. Why? They meet the definition. All right? So explain why 2 and 6 are clearly not congruent despite the corresponding angles postulate. So, yes, they're corresponding. They're in the same relative position. All right, they're in their groups of 4. They're both like in the top right. But why are they clearly not congruent despite the corresponding angles? Lines ain't parallel. Shout it. Lines ain't parallel. All this is only true when we have lines that are parallel. That's a giant punchline. These lines eventually intersect, so they ain't parallel. Okay? Let's see. Let's say the algebra for the next video, all right? If you've been itching to do some algebra, stay tuned for more.